All I gotta say is Cal Newport spits big facts in this book. Hi guys, today I want to talk about 5 books I think you need to read. First up, we have Creativity Inc. by Ed Catmull. Out of all the books here, this book has made the most profound impact in my life. This book isn't just about how Pixar makes a movie, but it's also about what it means to be a creative. I think this book does a really good job of realistically depicting the challenges of making something creative. I think what makes this book super compelling is just reading about their creative philosophy. There's this quote I wanted to read about how they view failure. So, mistakes aren't a necessary evil. They aren't evil at all. They are an inevitable consequence of doing something new, and as such should be seen as valuable. Without them, we'd have no originality. The better and more subtle interpretation is that failure is a manifestation of learning and exploration. If you aren't experiencing failure, then you are making a far worse mistake. You are being driven by the desire to avoid it. When I read that, my mind was blown, and I was I feel like their philosophy on the creative process really resonated with me, and I still carry a lot of the principles they talk about in this book to this day. At one point I was a graphic designer, and then a couple years after that I worked as a UI designer. This book was kind of my bedrock, and it really reinforced my own creative values. Even now, as I'm doing this whole YouTube thing, I feel like the ideas and the values still apply, so highly recommend this, especially if you're in the creative fields. You should definitely read this. Next book is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. This book is so good. Now, this book is about a journalist who gets hired to find this girl who's been missing for 40 years. And this is pretty much a balls-to-the-wall mystery thriller novel. It's so good. I really like the main female character because she's really flawed, but also super likable, and I feel like she is very noble in a way. Even though it's kind of a thick boy, it reads really fast, and it got me out of my reading slump. The beginning was a bit slow, but towards the middle/end, it really picks up. It's such a page turner. I have never clenched a book so hard in my life because I was just really invested in the story. When I was reading this, I think I binged it for 6 hours straight, and after I was done, I felt quite disgusting. And that's never happened to me before just because of how much reading I did. Yeah, I highly recommend this, especially if you are into mystery books, and it takes place in Sweden. So, what more could you ask for? The next book I'm going to recommend is called The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. I really liked how this book was very beginner-friendly, and I think it's very accessible if you're new to personal finance. And it wasn't boring, like a lot of financial books can be. This was not dry at all. What I really appreciated about this book is that it gave a very unique perspective on money. He shows us that people don't make financial decisions based on mathematical formulas or fancy spreadsheets, but it's really driven by emotions, ego, marketing, and personal experiences. Here's an interesting quote. "Wealth is the nice cars not purchased, the diamonds not bought, the watches not worn, the clothes forgone, and the first-class upgrade declined. Wealth is financial assets that haven't yet been converted into the stuff you see." So this book really put flex culture into perspective. This book really puts into perspective that just because someone has a very expensive house or a very expensive car, it doesn't mean they're wealthy. It just means that they spent $200,000 on a car. I think everyone needs to read this just because he explains very fundamental financial concepts, and yeah, I loved this book. Honestly, this book is life-changing. I walked away not really seeing money the same, and by the time I finished it, I think I definitely walked away feeling more confident and more financially literate. You should read this. You should read this book. Please read this book. It's so good. The next book I wanted to talk about is called The Humans by Matt Haig. He also wrote this book called The Midnight Library, which is also very popular. This book is so fucking wholesome. This book is about an alien who was sent to Earth to stop humans from figuring out the answer to this mathematical problem called the Riemann hypothesis. The aliens abduct this math professor who has the proof figured out. Then they send an alien on a mission to kill other people who might know the answer to the Riemann hypothesis while disguising as a professor. So I realize on paper this plot looks really morbid, but It's actually quite wholesome because at its core, this story is about what it's like to be a human and what humans do that might seem irrational to an outsider. And in this book, we follow this alien who's, disguising himself as his professor, and he at first really struggles to blend into human society. The way he describes like how humans act and the way he puts things, it was in a lot of ways touching and made me look at my life in a completely different way. This is easily like one of my top 10 favorite books. You need to read this, it's so good. Lastly, we have Digital Minimalism by Newport. This guy also wrote Deep Work, which is a very popular book. All I gotta say is Newport spits big facts in this book. I felt exposed because when I first read this, I was like, wow, I'm using my phone way too much. I remember finishing this book when I was an undergrad, and in the book, he asks you to do like a 30-day phone detox, and I actually did it. My mind had never been so clear. At first, it was hard because I was using my phone all the time. I think this book does a really good job at putting into perspective what technology companies are after, and it made me really reflect on the way that I was using technology. I was forced to think about why I use certain apps. Are they really serving me the way that I think they're serving me? So I highly recommend this book, and I think he really puts things into perspective and explains why this is so important. Everyone should read this. So yeah, that's the video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys check out some of these books because I think they're seriously good and life-changing. So I'll see you in the next video. Bye!